Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, by Drive. Carol S. Dweck. Introduction. Picture a 10-year-old boy. He's in a classroom, sitting at a little desk, and a researcher has just given him a puzzle. It's hard. Really hard. He grunts, he sweats, he toils away at it, and he just can't seem to crack it. Now, what do you imagine he does next? Does he sigh in frustration? Does he push the puzzle away and say, "I'm no good at this"? This little boy did something that changed everything. He pulled his chair in closer, rubbed his hands together, smacked his lips, and with a huge grin, he cried out, "I love a challenge." The researcher watching him was stunned. She thought people either coped with failure or they didn't. She had never seen someone who loved it. That researcher was a brilliant young psychologist named Drive. Carol S. Dweck, and that moment sparked a lifelong obsession. She wanted to understand what was going on inside that little boy's mind. What did he know that so many of us don't? What he knew, and what Drive. Dweck would spend the next 30 years proving through her groundbreaking research at Stanford University, is the subject of her multi-million copy best-selling book, Mindset. It's a book built on a single, breathtakingly simple idea that separates the people who achieve their potential from those who don't. It's an idea that explains why some of the most talented people in the world end up as footnotes in history, while others, with seemingly ordinary beginnings, go on to change the world. And my promise to you is this: by the end of our time together today, you will not only understand this simple belief, but you will have a roadmap to harness its power in your own life. This isn't just about getting better grades or being better at sports, though it will help with that. This is about fundamentally changing the way you see yourself and your potential. It's about unlocking a more courageous, more resilient, and more fulfilled version of you. So, let's begin our journey into one of the most powerful ideas you will ever encounter. Book summary. At the heart of Drive. Dweck's work is a simple discovery. For her entire career, she had been fascinated by how people deal with failure. As she studied thousands of people, from young children to Fortune 500 CEOs, she found that they tended to fall into two distinct groups, based on one core belief. This belief had nothing to do with their actual talent or intelligence. It was something deeper. It was their mindset. The first group operated from what she called the fixed mindset. This is the belief that your qualities are carved in stone. You have a certain amount of intelligence, a certain personality, a certain character, and that's that. Your job in life is to prove that you have a healthy dose of those traits. Every situation, whether it's a test, a new project at work, or even a first date, becomes a test. An evaluation. It asks one question over and over: will I succeed or fail? Will I look smart or dumb? Will I be accepted or rejected? The second group, however, saw things very differently. They operated from what Dweck called the growth mindset. This is the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts. Yes, people may differ in their initial talents and aptitudes, but everyone can change and grow through application and experience. For people with a growth mindset, the hand you're dealt is just the starting point for development. It's not the final word. Now, this might sound like a small difference. Fixed or growth? So what? Well, as Dweck's research powerfully shows, this one simple belief creates two entirely different worlds. It changes the meaning of success, the meaning of failure, and the very meaning of effort. It changes what you strive for and what you see as success. Let's step into those two worlds for a moment. Imagine you're having a really bad day. You go to a class that's really important to you, and the professor hands back the midterm papers. You got a C+. You're very disappointed. Later that day, you find a parking ticket on your car. Frustrated, you call your best friend to vent, but they seem distracted and brush you off. What do you think? What do you feel? When Drive. Dweck posed this scenario to people with a fixed mindset. Their responses were catastrophic. They saw these events as a direct measure of their worth. They said things like, "I'd feel like a total failure. I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. I'd feel worthless and dumb." Their thoughts about their life turned grim. "My life is pitiful. Nothing good ever happens to me. Life is unfair and all efforts are useless." And how would they cope? They'd retreat. "I'd stay in bed, get drunk, yell at someone, eat chocolate." The fixed mindset took a few minor setbacks and created a feeling of utter failure and paralysis. But when she gave the exact same story to people with a growth mindset, their reaction was completely different. They didn't like the setbacks, of course, but they didn't see them as a label. They didn't see them as a final verdict. They saw them as problems to be faced. They said things like, "I need to try harder in class, be more careful when I park, and I wonder if my friend had a bad day." Or, "The C+ would tell me that I'd have to work a lot harder in that class, but I have the rest of the semester to pull up my grade." Their focus wasn't on judgment, it was on action. They didn't feel the need to get drunk or hide in a closet, they felt the need to make a plan. They would study harder, pay the ticket, and figure things out with their friend. They were distressed, but they were ready to confront the challenges and keep working. This simple difference in mindset changes everything. And it starts from a very young age. Dweck once offered 4-year-olds a choice. They could either redo an easy jigsaw puzzle or they could try a harder one. The children with a fixed mindset, even at that tender age, chose the safe one. They wanted to guarantee their success. As one of them told the researchers, "Kids who are smart don't do mistakes." But the children with the growth mindset couldn't understand the question. Why would anyone want to do the same puzzle over and over? They jumped at the chance for a harder one. As one little girl exclaimed, "I'm dying to figure them out." For the fixed mindset, success is about proving you're smart. For the growth mindset, success is about becoming smarter. This choice, between proving and improving, echoes throughout our lives. It determines whether we become what Michael Lewis calls learners or non-learners, and it explains why so many people who are labeled naturals end up failing to reach their potential. In the world of sports, we are obsessed with the idea of the natural, the person who was just born with it. But as the book reveals, this is one of the most dangerous myths out there. Consider the story of Billy Beane. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, you know his name. As a high school kid, Beane was the definition of a natural. He was the highest scorer on the basketball team, the quarterback of the football team, and the best hitter on the baseball team. Scouts saw him as the next Babe Ruth. Everyone agreed he had it all. But Billy Beane had a fixed mindset. He believed his talent was innate, which meant he shouldn't ever have to struggle. He shouldn't ever fail. As one scout put it, Billy was of the opinion that he should never make an out. So the minute things went wrong in his professional career, he fell apart. Every botched at-bat became a public humiliation. A verdict on his talent. He couldn't handle it. Because natural talent shouldn't need effort, he didn't work to fix his weaknesses. Because natural talent shouldn't need help, he never asked for it. The very idea of having deficiencies was terrifying. Billy Beane, the can't-miss kid, was trapped by his own talent. He never became the superstar everyone expected. Now, contrast his story with another natural who was cut from his high school varsity team, Michael Jordan. We look at Michael Jordan today and we see physical perfection. We think his greatness was inevitable. But it wasn't. When he was cut from that team, he was devastated. His mother told him to go back and discipline himself. And he did. He started getting to the gym at 6 in the morning to practice before school. All through his career, even at the absolute peak of his fame, he was known as the hardest working athlete in the game. He constantly worked on his weaknesses. His former coach called him a genius who constantly wants to upgrade his genius. Jordan understood what Billy Beane did not. As he famously said, "The mental toughness and the heart are a lot stronger than some of the physical advantages you might have." This is the mindset of a champion. It's not about being flawless. It's not about being born a superhero. It's about what Jackie Joyner-Kersee, one of the greatest athletes of all time, calls a love for the process. She said, "For me, the joy of athletics has never resided in winning. I derive just as much happiness from the process as from the results." She wasn't born a world beater. In her first track meets, she finished last, again and again. But she kept working, kept improving, and eventually, she became a legend. The growth mindset creates what Dweck, and many of the athletes she profiles, call character. Character is what allows you to dig down deep when things are going against you. It's what allows you to turn a setback into a victory. In the fixed mindset, failure is a label. It defines you. In the growth mindset, failure is information. It's a wake-up call. It's motivating. Michael Jordan once said in a famous ad, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and missed." You can be sure that each time, he went back to the gym and practiced that shot 100 times over. This same dynamic plays out just as powerfully in the world of business. In the late 1990s, the corporate world was obsessed with talent. The idea, pushed by powerful consulting firms, was that companies needed to find naturals in business and pay them huge sums of money. This was called the talent mindset. No company embraced this idea more than a fast-rising energy company called Enron. Enron worshipped talent. They recruited people with the fanciest degrees and paid them enormous salaries. They created a culture where everyone had to look and act extraordinarily talented at all times. They created, in effect, a company-wide fixed mindset. And we know what happens in a fixed mindset. People do not admit their deficiencies. They hide their mistakes. They'd sooner lie than look flawed. And that is exactly what happened. The brilliant naturals at Enron couldn't admit when their grand ideas were failing. They couldn't self-correct. They couldn't ask for help. And so, they lied. They cooked the books, hid their losses, and created one of the most catastrophic corporate collapses in history. The talent mindset, which was supposed to be their secret weapon, was the very thing that destroyed them. So, what did the great companies do? Researcher Jim Collins, in his famous book Good to Great, studied companies that made the leap from being merely good to being truly great and sustained it for years. He found that, in every single case, they were led by a particular type of leader. These leaders were not the larger-than-life, charismatic CEOs who oozed ego. They were self-effacing, quiet, even shy people. But they had a fierce resolve. And they shared two key traits: they constantly asked questions, and they had the ability to confront the most brutal facts of their reality, head-on. In other words, they were growth mindset leaders. They weren't trying to prove they were geniuses. They were trying to learn. They surrounded themselves with the most able people they could find. They looked squarely at their own mistakes, and they were obsessed with a simple question: how can we get better? Jack Welch, the legendary CEO who transformed General Electric, learned this lesson the hard way. Early in his career, he was seen as arrogant and unable to take criticism. But he learned from his mistakes. A disastrous acquisition taught him that there was only a razor's edge between self-confidence and hubris. He came to believe that true self-confidence wasn't about titles or fancy suits. It was the courage to be open, to welcome change and new ideas regardless of their source. He started visiting factories and listening to frontline workers. He dismantled the elitist culture at GE and rewarded teamwork instead of just individual genius. He transformed the company from a judge and be judged framework to a learn and help learn framework. The same story unfolded when Lou Gerstner took over a dying IBM, a company drowning in its own elitism and turf wars, much like Enron. And when Anne Mulcahy took over a near-bankrupt Xerox. They didn't come in as superheroes with all the answers. They came in as learners. They listened, they confronted the brutal facts, and they built a culture of growth, development, and teamwork. They rooted out the fixed mindset. Perhaps nowhere are the two mindsets more consequential than in our relationships. When we approach relationships with a fixed mindset, we bring in a whole host of dangerous beliefs. We believe in the idea of a perfect match, the meant to be. We believe in instant, perfect, and perpetual compatibility. And this leads to two huge problems. First, it creates the belief that if you have to work at it, it wasn't meant to be. People with a fixed mindset expect everything good to happen automatically. If you're truly compatible, you should be able to read each other's minds. You should share all of each other's views. Communication shouldn't be necessary, you should just know. But as every single relationship expert will tell you, this is a fantasy. All relationships require work. They require communication. They require confronting differences. The belief that a good relationship should be effortless robs people of the very tools they need to make it last. The second problem is even worse. In the fixed mindset, problems are seen as a sign of deep character flaws. When a conflict arises, the immediate reaction is to assign blame. Either I'm flawed, or, more likely, my partner is flawed. Once you see your partner as having a permanent, negative trait, selfish, irresponsible, uncaring, you begin to feel anger and contempt. And since the problem comes from a fixed trait, it can't be solved. So you become dissatisfied with the whole relationship. In one of her most powerful studies, Drive, Dweck asked people to describe a terrible rejection they had experienced. Everyone, regardless of mindset, had a painful story to tell. But their reactions were night and day. Those with a fixed mindset felt judged and permanently labeled by the rejection. Their number one goal was revenge. As one man put it, "She took my worth with her when she left. Not a day goes by I don't think about how to make her pay." They were trapped in bitterness, unable to move on. Those with a growth mindset, though deeply hurt, reacted differently. They didn't feel permanently branded. Their primary goal was to understand, forgive, and learn from the experience so they could have a better future. As one woman said, "He hurt me, but I had a whole life waiting for me, and I'll be damned if I was going to live it in the past." The growth mindset allows you to see that you, your partner, and the relationship itself are all capable of growth and change. It transforms your partner from an adversary to a teammate. It transforms problems from catastrophes into opportunities to build deeper understanding and intimacy. So where do these mindsets come from? We aren't born with them. We learn them. And they are taught to us, often unintentionally, by our parents, our teachers, and our coaches. This brings us to one of the most shocking discoveries in the book, the danger of praise. For decades, we've been told that to build our children's confidence, we should praise their intelligence. "You're so smart. You're so talented. You're a natural." More than 80% of parents believe this is necessary to foster achievement. Drive. Dweck worried that this was, in fact, teaching children the fixed mindset. It was telling them that what we value is some innate, fixed quality. So she put it to the test. In a series of groundbreaking studies, she gave children a nonverbal IQ test. They all did pretty well. Afterward, some of the children were praised for their ability. Wow, that's a really good score. You must be smart at this. Others were praised for their process. Wow, that's a really good score. You must have worked really hard. The results were stunning and immediate. When given the choice for their next task, the kids praised for being smart rejected a challenging new task that they could learn from. They didn't want to do anything that could expose their flaws and call their new smart label into question. In contrast, a full 90% of the kids praised for their effort wanted the harder task. They were eager to learn. Then, all the kids were given some very difficult problems, on which they all performed poorly. The ability-praised kids were devastated. If success meant they were smart, then this struggle meant they were dumb. Their enjoyment plummeted. Their confidence vanished. The effort-praised kids, on the other hand, just thought the problems were harder and that they needed to apply more effort or try new strategies. They remained engaged and optimistic. But the most devastating finding was what happened to their performance. After the difficult problems, the ability-praised kids' performance fell apart, even when they were given easier problems again. They had lost faith in themselves. The effort-praised kids' performance got better and better. They had used the challenge to sharpen their skills. Praising intelligence had, in effect, lowered their IQs. And praising effort had raised them. Even more alarming, when the kids were asked to write a letter to a student in another school and report their scores, almost 40% of the ability-praised kids lied, inflating their scores. In the fixed mindset, imperfection is shameful, so they simply lied it away. Praising them for being smart had turned ordinary kids into liars. The message is clear. When we praise the process, effort, strategy, focus, perseverance, we create a growth mindset. We create kids who love challenges, who are resilient in the face of setbacks, and who are better, more honest learners. The same principles apply to great teachers. The best teachers, from Marva Collins turning around a classroom of unteachable inner-city kids to Dorothy DeLay mentoring the world's greatest violinists at Juilliard, all share a core belief. They believe in the growth of intellect and talent, and they are fascinated with the process of learning. They set high standards, but they create a nurturing atmosphere of trust, not judgment. They don't just say, "You can do it." They say, "Here are the tools and strategies to help you get there." As one of Marva Collins' students, who had been discarded by the school system, explained why he loved her demanding classroom, "It's so hard here. That's why I like it, because it makes your brains bigger." So, can we change our mindset? The answer is a resounding yes. Beliefs are just that, beliefs. They are in our minds, and we can change our minds. The journey to a growth mindset isn't like flipping a switch. It's more like embarking on a voyage. The old beliefs don't just disappear. Instead, new beliefs take their place alongside the old ones, and as they get stronger, they give you a different way to think, feel, and act. The first step, surprisingly, is to embrace your fixed mindset. To accept that we are all a mixture of both. There's no shame in it. The second step is to become aware of your fixed mindset triggers. When does that voice of judgment show up? Is it when you take on a new challenge? When you struggle or fail? When you meet someone who's better at something than you are? The third step is to give your fixed mindset persona a name. You can call it Gertrude, or Z, or Dale Denton the stoner from Pineapple Express, as some of Dweck's students did. Giving it a name separates it from you. It's not you, it's just your fixed mindset persona acting up. You can observe it, and even have a conversation with it. Which brings us to the fourth step, educate your persona. When it shows up and warns you not to take a risk, you can thank it for its concern, but explain why you want to take this step anyway. Ask it to come along for the ride. When you have a setback and it starts telling you you're a failure, you can acknowledge its perspective, but then talk to it about how you plan to learn from the setback and move forward. This journey is about moving from a framework of judgment to a framework of growth. It's a commitment to learning, a commitment that requires time, effort, and support. But as you move along this path, you'll find that your life becomes richer. You become a more alive, more courageous, and more open person. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through mindset, I find myself circling back to that one, simple, powerful idea, the belief that you can grow. It's an idea that seems almost too simple to be true. And yet, as Dweck's research so beautifully illustrates, it is the invisible engine that drives human potential. What I find most profound about this book is how it shifts the entire conversation about success. For so long, we have been a culture that worships talent. We celebrate the natural, the prodigy, the overnight success. We look at a Michael Jordan or a Mozart and we see a different species, someone touched by the gods. This book pulls back the curtain on that myth. It shows us that greatness is not a gift you are given. It is a prize you earn. It's earned through thousands of hours of practice, through relentless self-critique, through the courage to face your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. The heroes of this book are not the ones who were born the best, they are the ones who fell in love with the process of becoming the best. This is, I think, one of the most hopeful and democratic ideas in all of psychology. It means that your potential is not a fixed number written in your DNA. It is a starting point, and what happens next is largely up to you. It frees you from the tyranny of having to be smart or talented all the time. It gives you permission to be a work in progress. It gives you permission to struggle, to fail, and to learn. The book also serves as a powerful warning. The messages we send to ourselves and to others have incredible power. The simple act of praising a child for being smart can inadvertently set them on a path of fragility and fear. It's a stunning reminder that our words shape worlds. And with that knowledge comes a great responsibility. If you're ready to start putting these ideas into practice, here are a few simple actions you can take today. First, just listen. For the next 24 hours, pay attention to the voice in your head. When you face a challenge, what does it say? Does it judge you? Or does it coach you? Don't try to change it yet. Just become aware of your own mindset triggers. Second, reframe one piece of praise. The next time you want to compliment a friend, a family member, or even yourself, consciously shift from praising the trait to praising the process. Instead of "you're brilliant," try "I was so impressed with the way you worked through that problem step by step." Watch what happens. And third, take on a small, manageable challenge. Something you've told yourself you're just not good at. It could be trying to draw something for 10 minutes, learning a few chords on a guitar, or attempting a difficult recipe. As you do it, focus entirely on the process. Feel your brain making new connections. Remind yourself that you are not being tested, you are growing. Ultimately, the message of mindset isn't just about achieving more. It's about living a richer, more vibrant, and more courageous life. It's about understanding that the path to fulfillment is not found in proving you are enough, but in the joy of becoming more than you were yesterday. That was the book summary of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. We've certainly touched on the major themes today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The real adventure begins when you decide to take the journey yourself. The true power of this book lies in the stories, the details, and the quiet moments of self-reflection it inspires. If you felt a spark of recognition in anything we've discussed, a glimpse of your own fixed mindset persona, or a hope for a more growth-oriented life, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just an act of learning, it's an investment in the person you have the potential to become. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this journey through mindset has been valuable to you, please take a moment to like this summary and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Thank you for joining me, and let's keep growing together.